Hello, it's Richard Bromley here from Charterhouse Auctioneers. We're going to have a look through our classic and vintage car auction coming up at the Haynes International Motor Museum on the 3rd of March. Now, as usual, we've been out and about working hard to get some fantastic entries. This particular entry is doing a huge amount of advertising at the moment. It's all in all the papers. We've got it in the national press as well. It's a 1960 Daimler Sp 250. Now, this has been holed up in its garage since the early 1970s. The car, as I say, is a 1960. It's a Series A. It's a very early car. It's a 59th car to roll off the Daimler production line, and it's a project. When everybody loves a project, being sold without reserve. This is actually one of the very first lots in the sale, and hopefully should do a good sort of £7,000 to £10,000. But as I say, we do like a good project, and I've always got a soft spot for Triumph Heralds because I had one back in the day, and this is a 1964 1250, again a restoration project being sold without reserve. It'll do just a few £100, and that's being sold in its garage in Yeovil. We're not moving that because it's not cost effective. At the other end of the spectrum, maybe to the Herald, is this wonderful Citroen 2CV, and we've got, as you can see here, there's not got one, we've not got two, we've got three Triumph 2CVs, and they range from the 1958 right the way through to the 1986, and we've got the Special, we've got the Charleston, and of course that super duper early 2CV there as well. Estimates range on those between the sort of £4,500 to £12,000. Now, we do like a bit of red action in the auction, and we've got here a nice 1954 Mgtf in the cherry red, and long-term ownership. This one, he's selling it now because he's developing his fast road TR2, and that's the 1250, estimated on that between sort of £16,000 and £18,000. And just a year later is the 1955 Mgtf, and obviously the slightly larger, slightly more powerful engine, which is preferred by some. This one in the black, and sadly the owner on this one is giving up driving due to ill health, and he's had this for a few years. He's converted it from left-hand drive to right-hand drive, and that's estimated about sort of £18,000 to £20,000. Now, continuing on along the lines of having a brace of cars, we've got a brace of Triumph TR3s. First up here, the 1956 Triumph TR3, and this is an original right-hand drive car, exported as most of them were. And this one hasn't been anywhere recently. Could do with certainly some recommissioning. Value on that round about £13,000 to £14,000. But the next one, the 1959 Triumph TR3A. This is beautiful. This was bought a few years ago now, I think about 2017, and the owner paid £34,000 for it. But it's time for it to go off to a new garage. He's got a few other cars, and this one's estimated around about the £20,000. So again, all the hard work has been done on that. One of my favourites in the sale, apart from the Daimler Dark, is this lovely 1972 Mercedes-Benz 350 SLC. Again, long-term ownership. He's owned it for 22, 23 years. It's been repainted in that time. The front seats have been recovered, and I'm just a great fan of these. I do like a bit of V8 action. It's a 4.5 litre. It's the coupe, so much rarer. I think only a handful of these actually exist out on the roads, and he's keen to sell, so it's sensibly estimated at sort of £5,000 to £6,000. Another client keen to sell is this 1984 Dutton Melos Kit Car. Now, this is actually a heavily modified Melos Kit Car, which is quite interesting in its own right that someone's got a kit car and they've redeveloped it. This one has a Rover 3.5 litre V8 with a manual gearbox. There we go. And this one's only reserved at sort of £2,200. So certainly you can scream around the lanes and have some fun in that for a couple of £1,000s. Maybe not so much screaming this one. This is the 1963 Heinkel Trojan 200 from a client over in Somerset. They're great fun. They're very popular these days. You can certainly get more than one in a garage, can't you? And this one's estimated around about the £12,000 to £14,000. This is followed by another diminutive car, certainly the 1933, the Morris Minor, the little two-seater, and such a pretty little body on this car. Again, sadly, the client on this has had a couple of kneecaps. He's not been kneecapped, he's had kneecap operations, and he's struggling to get in and out of this one, so he wants to buy something a little bit larger to enjoy. And this one's estimated around about the sort of £8,000 to £9,000, and it's very recently had a bill from the Haynes garage for about £2,500. Estimated at £5,500 to £6,500, this will raise a smile wherever you go, and you will certainly be seen absolutely everywhere. It's the 1970 VW JAS Beach Buggy, 1600cc, scream around in that. It's sort of fantastic, sort of a purpley pink colour there, and certainly some great fun summer motoring. Maybe a little bit more of a serious summer motoring is this wonderful, such a pretty rear, isn't it? The 1968, the Alfa Romeo Spider 1600 Duetto, original right-hand drive car, exported to South Africa. It's come back to these shores a few years ago. It's been completely bare metal respray and restoration, and the estimate on that's around about £34,000 to £36,000. Similar colour, but very, very much a British car, is the 66 Ford Anglia, the Super Deluxe 1200. This is owned, it's come from a deceased estate, but he was a professional panel beater for many years. It's possibly one of the best you will ever see. He spent 15 to 20 years restoring it. So very meticulous restoration, took him some time, and that's estimated between £8,000 and £10,000. We've had a lot of interest in that already. From a deceased estate, this time down in Cornwall, we have a trio of cars. Well, it's actually two cars and a trailer, I suppose, technically. We've got the 1948 Rover 75 P3. This is one that he bought as a restoration project and is completely restored. There's also his 1952 Austin FL1 hire car. His father had one back in the day. They're quite a large family, and I think you can get about 7 people in this comfortably, so he bought one of those and restored it. That's obviously a Newton Abbott car. And finally, there's a livestock trailer. He had a small holding, and so he saw this at an auction and bought it and restored it, and that's being sold without reserve. From a retired senior military officer this time, we have the 1998 Jaguar Xk8 the Convertible. And again, this is a sensible mileage. It's less than 80,000 miles. As you'd imagine, it's nicely presented. He's had a few stone chips repaired on the front, and the estimate on that sort of between £7,000 and £10,000. And I suspect in a few years' time, I'm going to look back on it and say, why didn't I buy that when they were cheap then? This is coming up is one you may think you recognise, the 1960 Vauxhall Cresta. Sorry, I just had to cough then. The 1960 Vauxhall Cresta. Now, this is one you may think you have seen before, but it's not. It's actually an identical pair in the Havana brown over the cream. We sold one for the same owner in the last classic car auction. It made £16,000 or £17,000. This one's estimated between £9,000 and £11,000. He says it's a better restored car, and we'll see where we go on that. Coming up now is, again, from a client over in Somerset, a very pretty car this. To me, it's sort of Corvette, it's Dino, but actually it's an Opel GT. They're only made in left-hand drive, and this is a 1972 one in sort of an orange glow paintwork there. Restored about 8 years ago, and still presenting really very well. A pretty little car, that. Other end of the scale, maybe to the Opel, this is a large car, the 1953 Bentley R Type. And this one has been in a barn for some time. Well, predominantly due to COVID, like a lot of these cars are, and would certainly benefit from some recommissioning work, and estimated between £15,000 and £17,000. Next up is a trio of Porsches. First, here we are, the 1974, the Porsche 914. And again, these are starting to move a bit, aren't they? This was bought by a retired engineer as a project for retirement, and he's restored it, he's done it. I don't think he's told the wife what he spent on it. All the proper work, the engine and gearbox, that's all been farmed out to Porsche independent specialists, and that's presenting very well today. Estimate on that between £17,000 and £19,000. Next up, a colour I like, rather like the 350 Mercedes SLC. I do like a bit of brown car, and the mocha brown Porsche 911 SC Sports Targa. Again, long-term ownership, recent restoration, and it needs a couple of bits finishing off on an estimate on that between sort of £35,000 and £40,000. And finally, from the trio of the Porsches, we've got the Guards Red 911 Carrera Sport Targa. Again, long-term ownership here, and nicely presented, well-maintained, independent Porsche specialist. An estimate on that ran about the £38,000 to £42,000. And finally, what I'm going to talk about now is a little trio of Land Rovers. This is, again, what a great looking truck. Here we go. It's a 1970s Series 2A recovery truck here. I do like the patina. That is perfect patina. Underneath it, it's got a new galvanised chassis. Money's been spent on it. And that is, I mean, take that to Goodwood. What a great thing to have. An estimate on that between sort of £8,000 and £10,000. And finally, back down to the brown action in the auction here. We've got the 1982 Land Rover Series 3, the 88 County, and the russet brown. Long-term ownership. I think it's been in the family since 1985, and yes, you've guessed it, it's also had a galvanised chassis, although that was fitted about 15 years ago. This has been barn stored for a long time. The owner took it out, new points, condensers, coils, some fresh batteries, some new petrol and bits and pieces, and it fired up. The estimate on that on the county between £6,000 and £8,000. So there's a quick little walk and talk through the sale, and hopefully we'll see you at the auction.